First of all, I take this opportunity to congratulate the first-time member in Parliament, Sri Shafi Parambil from my state, in moving such a private member resolution, and he has narrated the situation in a best way, for which I extend my hearty congratulations to Mr. Shafi Parambil. Madam Chairperson, this is one of the very important, sensitive issue as far as the state of Kerala is concerned. That is why he was so emotional in presenting the issue before this House. 3 million people are working in the Middle East countries, in the Gulf countries. And if we examine the social status or their economic background of these people, 90% or 90 to 95% of the people belongs to the lower strata or the middle strata. So how a person or a passenger belonging to such a family, just they are going, living abroad, in Gulf countries, living their families, everything, just for their bread and butter, they are working, they are hard working, how they are able to meet this airfare of having such, it is even coming to 1 lakh rupees for the economy class, and they have to bear that expense. So that is why he has suggested, and I fully agree with the private member resolution, it is not a demand-driven project, but it is absolutely a daylight looting of the passengers of our country. Almost all the airlines, I still remember, had a debate with Sri Arun Jaitley at the time of the privatization of Air India. And what they said, when the competition, that is success through competition, and fittest of the survival, that is the globalized philosophy, globalized economic philosophy. And he was at the time arguing with me that when the competition increases in the airfield, definitely in the civil aviation sector, definitely the beneficiary will be the passengers. So the entire airline sector has been now privatized. Honorable Ministry is here. And Air India is also privatized. I would like to ask a specific question to the Honorable Minister, whether you have conducted any study on the impact of the privatization of Air India. What is the improvement of the service in Air India after privatization? Kindly examine. And if you critically examine, if you are having a microscopic scrutiny of the Air India after the privatization, though there is no improvement in the efficiency of service, nothing is there. Every time we are also, last week also, I felt very much as a traveler, regular traveler in Air India. So this is the situation prevailing. That is why some things that has to be there so as to control these airlines in our country. And that is why we are saying that regarding the airfare. So the people who are living, especially in the Gulf countries, they are finding it very difficult. Suppose their immediate brother or father or anybody has died, they are not able to come and have the funerals, to witness the funeral ceremony and perform the last rites to their most beloved wife or father or mother. This is the situation prevailing. So I urge upon the Honorable Minister, kindly take it seriously, not only in the domestic sector, not only in the foreign sector, but specifically in the Gulf sector. You have a critical examination, because during the holidays, when the schools and colleges are closed during the holidays, during the Onam vacation, during the Christmas and during the Eid, in all these times they're exorbitantly increasing the rate without any reasonable cause, just only on the reason that this is demand driven, or the market forces are determining the price of the airports. So is it the result and the best result of the privatization? That is why at the time of the privatization, we from the opposition was strongly, vehemently opposing the privatization of the airline sector in the country. That has come to true. That is why on the same flight, 77,000, just now Shafi has narrated 77,000, and after that more than 1 lakh rupees, how it could be justified. So an urgent action, intervention from the Honorable Minister is required. Madam Chairperson, before 1994, the government of India having absolute control over the civil aviation, all the airlines, and the price airfare discrimination, it is being done by the government of India. See, after the airlines are, at that time, there strict guidelines were there, norms were there in fixing the airfare. After the airline, then now, after this is A repeal of Air Corporations Act of 1994, that is after the liberalization, globalization and privatization, the airlines are free to fix reasonable tariff under the provisions of sub-rule 1 of Rule 135 of the Aircraft Rules 1937. Madam Chairperson, this provision has to be reviewed and relooked. That is sub-rule 1, Rule 135 of the Aircraft Rules has to be reviewed, of 1937 has to be reviewed. Madam, Rule 135(4) of the Aircraft Rules empowers the Director General Civil Aviation to issue direction to the airlines in case it has imposed excessive tariff under Rule 135(1) of Aircraft Rules. I would like to know from the Honorable Minister, during all these periods that is subsequent to the formulation of these rules, how many times they have intervened, Civil Aviation DG has intervened, and what relief has provided for, or what penalties have been imposed for excessive tariff undertaken or given or taken by or imposed by these airline companies. We would like to have the statistics on it, because according to my information, nothing is being done. Now the civil aviation airline sector is absolutely dominated by the private airlines. According to their women fancy, they are imposing excessive, exorbitant charges for which it is unaffordable to the common poor people of the country, in particular those who are living in Gulf countries, poor ordinary people. Madam, subsequent to the deregulation, huge increase in the airfare, depending on the market conditions which have already been narrated. See, migrant workers, especially as I've rightly told, in the Gulf countries, skilled and semi-skilled force. And what is the salary? It is well known to everybody. And they are not able to afford this price. Madam, in 2023, domestic air traffic has grown by 23%. That is record passengers of 153 million. We are having 153 million passengers now. By 2030, it will increase by 300 million. My question is, whenever the demand and the number of passengers increases, definitely the price has to come down. We are having 156 million passengers, and it is a very good growth as far as air traffic is concerned. And by 2030, it will be increased up to 300 million. This is the statistics and the report which shows. Then why the airfare is not coming down? That has to be explained. That is another point which I would like to make. Madam, I would like to refer the committee report, that is Committee on Transport, report number 353. That is a Parliamentary Standing Committee report number 353 of the Committee on Transport and Highways. Very specific, so many recommendations they have given. All these recommendations, none of the recommendations has been implemented so far. Madam, I would like to go through some of the recommendations, some of the very important recommendations. Number 1, the committee reiterates its view that passengers should receive a fair deal at all times, and recommends that the ministry should have a relook into its policy regarding regulation of airfare tariff in view of the sudden surge in airfares in normal times as also during disasters and calamities, and take appropriate action in consonance with the powers delegated to it under Rule 135 of the Aircraft Act 1937. See whether any action has been done by the DGCA by invoking the power under Rule 135. Absolutely their power is there, provision is there, but nothing is being done. That is the experience which goes to show. Otherwise, let the minister explain and convince the House that it is being done in a proper way. And what is, madam, the term reasonable profit? This is the word which is being misused and misquoted by these airline companies. What is the reasonable profit? Who is determining the reasonable profit? Madam, the committee further says, the committee is of the opinion that the term reasonable profit should be clearly defined in the rules, taking into account various financial and operational factors, as it is the most significant aspect for controlling surge in airfares which affects the common man. Sir, what else is required? This is the Standing Committee on Public, this is a Standing Committee on Transport, And specific recommendation has been given to the government that the reasonable profit, the term reasonable profit, is being misused by the airlines in the country. That has to be reviewed, relooked, and it should be in accordance with affordable to the common man. That is the recommendation of the Standing Committee on Transport. What action did the government take on the recommendation of this committee, Parliamentary Standing Committee? So further, the committee says, so many recommendations, I am not going to all. And further, the committee recommends that the ministry, in consultation with the airlines, should devise a mechanism or a formula so that the concept of reasonable profit as provided explicitly in Rule 135, one of the aircraft rules 1937, is adhered to. That has already been explained. I am not going to the details. And further, further, madam, the committee also recommends setting up of a grievance redressal mechanism to deal with such complaints. Shafi Parambil's private member resolution, a specific demand is to have a separate quasi-judicial mechanism so as to look into the airfare, whether it is excessive, whether it is reasonable, just, genuine. That has to be looked into, for which a quasi-judicial mechanism has to be provided. Though the quasi-judicial word is not being used by the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Transport, they have recommended that setting up of a grievance redressal mechanism to deal with such complaints, and also recommends that the ministry may ensure the proper implementation of the existing rules under Rule 135 of the Aircraft Rule 1937, which is the national law in India for fixing of reasonable airfares by the airlines for the benefit of the passengers. Madam Chairperson, further the committee, and correctly in the resolution it is clearly mentioned, to devise a suitable monitoring mechanism to keep a check on the sudden surge in prices during the festive seasons or holidays or natural calamities, as it has a negative impact on tourism. Madam, our state, Kerala, is mainly depending on the major revenue income is, or the income is out of the tourism. It is well known, it is being described as the God's own country. So it's what is happening during the tourism season, as well as the vacation season, and also in some festive seasons. In all these times, it is being exorbitant rate is being imposed, and the committee is very specific that a suitable monitoring mechanism has to be put in so as to check the sudden surge in the prices during the festive season. Yes, madam. Yes, ma'am. I'm concluding. So 1 or 2 minutes, I will conclude. And further that ERA, in consultation with the various stakeholders, may look into the feasibility of reducing the various components of airfare which may result in decrease in airfares. Madam Chairperson, I would like to draw the attention of the Honourable Minister. Not only the airlines, the government has to do a lot of things in this, because regarding the tax on the air fuel, and also regarding so many other issues also, just now Dushyantji has told about it. So many other components are there since it is being enhanced. So definitely the government has to come forward how to address the issue, how to minimize or address the issue of the highest airfare in the country and regulate all these things. And rightly, a report has already been mentioned here that India, that is, he has read it, ACI, that is the Airports Council International, conducted the study of 36,000 routes in the top 10 aviation markets in Asia Pacific and the Middle East. It found that India saw the highest airfare increase of 41%, followed by UAE 34%, Singapore 30%, and Australia 23%. International airfares in particular have seen a 50% increase in the September-December quarter of 2022 compared to the same period in pre-pandemic 2019. This is the situation prevailing in the country. Madam Chairperson, if you travel in the Indigo and likewise low-cost airlines, you are not even getting drinking water. It is not being provided. It is a primary basic human right of a passenger to have drinking water. And also even for the seating arrangements, I am not going to the details. The committee report is specific regarding the seat fee, special fee for the seating also. If you want to have the front seat, you have to pay more. And some other seats, 1,500. And we, the members of parliament, are suffering. We are now taking money from out of our pocket. Lok Sabha Secretariat is not paying for it. Because Lok Sabha Secretariat, because this 1,500 rupees has to be borne from our pocket. Because if you want the front row seat, it will not be allowed, for which cost is to additional fee has to be given. Such a situation. This is airline.
धन्यवाद
Yes, madam. Yesterday, Honorable Minister, he has given a very good reply. We all congratulate him, and he said one word that now Indian civil aviation or the Indian airfield, now it has become the railway of India. But railway of India means railway is improving like anything in so many aspects. Even the railway stations and so many other Vande Bharat train. So I would like to urge upon you, please have a special look on this airfare matter and to have some legislative amendments. We will fully support the government to have some, and the government should have some definite and specific role in controlling the airfare, and that has to be looked into. In particular, once again, I would like to suggest you have to examine it as a special case of the Middle East countries where the common poor people are traveling day to day or for their job and for their bread and butter. With these words, once again, I fully support the private member resolution moved by my learned brother friend Sri Shafi Parambil as a private member resolution. That is the first private member resolution of the 18th Lok Sabha. I urge upon all the members of the House and also to the government, please pass this resolution since it is having an unanimity among the House. With these words, I conclude. Thank you very much.